This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from Burger King, Buffalo Wild Wings, KFC, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a burger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts podcast with the Rotoscopers, episode 323, The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. Married Sue who? Welcome to the Animation Addicts podcast with the Rotoscopers, the number one place to get your animation fix with animation addicts just like you. Each episode, we dive into the wonderful world of animation featuring Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, and everything in between. From hilarious discussions and movie reviews to interviews with industry insiders, this show's mission is to brighten your day through our love of animation. So hop on your nerdy couch, grab some snacks, and get ready to hang out with your animation besties because it's time to dive into today's episode.
Welcome to the Animation Addicts podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Stradling.
And I'm Chelsea Robson.
And we are coming fresh off a screening of a new movie that's going to be coming out in a few days.
Yes.
Which is The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. So this, man, we will talk about this one, but this is one of these off-the-cuff episodes that Chelsea and I like to do. It's the best because we're in the same room, so we don't have the Zoom lag. And it's just so much better when you get to see your friends in person.
Like, oh, hey, we're friends.
It's, you know what? Initially, I'm on a quest to review a whole bunch of movies. And so Chelsea, we were going to do this one. We weren't. And then, we decided no. But I was going to keep going. But I had forgotten all of that. That went in one ear and went out the other. And so last night I messaged Chelsea about it. Like, hey, okay, we still on for the screening? She's like, no, we canceled that. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. But then, it ended up working that Chelsea came anyway. So this is going to be a really fun discussion for a new movie that I think is a little unexpected. People are pumped about it, maybe not pumped about it.
Or have never even heard of it. But.
Never heard of it. It's not this huge, it's not a Moana 2 marketing tour. Where you just, or Wicked, where you can't get away from it, right? This is definitely going to be for a certain market, but we will talk about that right after this.
Clorox Sentiva smells like lavender. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
Right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Sentiva. Now available in Clorox Sentiva Lavender Scented Bleach. Use as directed.
More rewards, more savings. With American Express Business Gold, earn up to $395 back in annual statement credits on eligible purchases at select shipping, food delivery, and retail subscription merchants. Enjoy the benefits of membership with the Amex Business Gold Card. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Fred Warner, linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. Abercrombie has the new suits you need, plus all the collared shirts to go with them. The Abercrombie & Fitch Collins suit is the only suit you'll ever need for any occasion. Available in slim, classic, and athletic. Pair it with a collared classic. Go with a soft, easy-to-wear sweater polo or a comfortable long-sleeve shirt. With so many different fits and fabrics, you can make a look that's completely your own. Add the Abercrombie & Fitch Collins suit and new collared shirts to every occasion this season. Shop online or in store.
The first time I was informed about this movie was actually at the Wicked. So when we went and saw Wicked, we were walking out and I see this big poster and the date that it comes out, and I was like, Morgan, do we know about this? Is this a thing we should do? And yeah, so that is how we even heard about it. I hadn't seen anything about it otherwise, but it is an animated film and it's coming out, and we're like, all right,
let's do it.
Let's see it.
Yeah, I mean, it had been announced in 2021, and then they very quickly had to fast track this. We'll talk about the reason why. But then there was a little bit of test footage, I believe, shown at Annecy 2023. And then this year at Comic-Con and Annecy again. And then again, I think New York Comic-Con as well. So they really were ramping up in the last 6 months, letting people know about this, doing different panels about it. Lord of the Rings obviously has a very established fan base.
Yes. So you have that, but it also has a stylistic of more on the. It's definitely more on a.
It's an anime
styling.
Let's just get some basic info or quick facts, as Wikipedia likes to call it. So the film, The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. It's directed by Kenji Kamiyama. Screenplay, quite a few people: Jeffrey Addis, Will Matthews, Phoebe Gittins, and Artie. Woo! This is going to be a big one. Papa Giorgio. Yes.
We love you.
I love you, but I'm sorry that I cannot pronounce your name, Artie. Also, story by Jeffrey Addis, Will Matthews, and Philippa Boyens. Now, Philippa Boyens she wrote the screenplay for the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Produced Philippa Boyens, Jason DeMarco, Joseph Chow. Now, interesting enough, when you're looking at the poster, it says Peter Jackson presents. But on this, there is no Peter Jackson. He's an executive producer. So he's an executive producer, but not necessarily listed as one of the main producers, like when you look in the producer section. Music by Stephen Gallagher. It's coming out this Friday, December 13th, 2024. Although when we went to our press screening, they said it was coming out the 12th. Did you notice that? So he said, Thursday the 12th. So we shall see.
Maybe just in our network or our region.
Runtime 134 minutes. And we don't have any information on box office, not out yet, and we don't have anything on budget. So before we start about the art style, we have to talk about the origin of this. And so the reason this movie exists, which is one of the reasons I was really apprehensive and skeptical going into it, is because the only reason they made this movie is because New Line Cinema was losing the rights to The Lord of the Rings.
I hate those
film
movies.
rights. Yes. So they needed to, a lot of times, in order to keep your rights.
Let's do another Spider-Man.
Yes, this is the Spider-Man problem. So you have to put out a movie so that way you can retain the film rights to continue to potentially produce other movies in. And I didn't know that this had existed with the Tolkien estate. I kind of thought, that's why they did Lord of the Rings. It was kind of a one-off thing. I thought The Hobbit, I don't know. But clearly there was something tied with The Hobbit that they have to put this movie out it's been about 10 years since the Hobbit franchise came out. So yeah, and it was supposed to, I believe that ended in 2024. This was supposed to come out earlier. I think April 12th was initially the date, but because of the writer's strike, that pushed things back. And so they're cutting it in at the wire at the very, very end. So this was announced in 2021, which is a pretty short timeline for an animated feature. They ended up, I think I read on Wikipedia that they ended up bringing 60 animation studios or companies to help with the animation, to get it across the finish line. But it was done in this, and it was with a director who's an anime director. He got his start on Akira and also Kiki's Delivery Service, and then he's directed quite a few things, most notably Ghost in a Shell, Standalone Complex, which is an anime TV series, bunch of other anime films, but Ghost in the Shell is kind of like one of the main things that he's known for. But he's an anime director. He's a Japanese guy. So very interesting. Here we go. We have this new Lord of the Rings, and it's not going to be in the style of. It's kind of in the style of Peter Jackson. It's definitely not Bakshi.
But the thing is, it was giving heavy Bakshi vibes at the very beginning. The very beginning, because they kept trying to make the mountains look like photoreal with like a film on top that made it look maybe like it's we're kind of trying to like transition you from this whole thing.
Yeah.
And that was what bothered me. There were elements, like certain scenery moments where I was like, okay, this actually feels like cohesive. But then like they're just, especially at the very beginning, it was just jarring. And it was how the movement of it was just really jerky at first. And so I was like, how is this stylistically going to continue on? And I think as you got going, I felt a lot more involved and maybe used to it. I wasn't noticing it as much toward the end, but the very beginning, it was very distracting.
I felt the exact same way going into it. I was like, oh, this is frustrating. And it always comes when you're blending CGI with 2D.
Yes.
And I found that it was most distracting when you had these very dynamic scenes where the background is simultaneously moving because the camera's moving. So you're seeing that, but then the characters are also moving. So there's like multiple planes that are moving along. When the background was pretty static and the characters were moving along the background, it was perfectly fine because that's what we're used to with traditional animation.
Right.
When you're throwing the CG onto it that already has this photo reel, and so things aren't blending together.
They really
it was jerky at times, and I think in initial, not test screenings, but they previewed this to some press. I think it was the Annecy back in France. In 2023, they just had some like test footage, and that was actually feedback. They thought, oh, well, they're just like working it out. So interesting. It did get better at certain scenes, but it was such a sweeping shot of Hera riding on her horse, which the Rohan, they're horse people. They all, these.
Right.
And so, of course, you're going to get this big sweeping shot of her, and she's trying to court this eagle, which the eagles are notorious for, doing their own thing and not interacting with humans. But it was kind of a bummer for an opening shot. I see what they were trying to do there, and very ambitious, but didn't quite stick the landing.
I mean, if you're going to try to be that ambitious, like you have to stick the landing.
Well,
but it was very, it was just, I felt like that was my main beef with the whole thing, is at the very beginning. I was very distracted. I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And yeah,
I think that was, my take is maybe this was a budget thing. It's easier to put these into CGI and then kind of like do that from there. But one thing that they specifically did, they actually filmed all of the actors in motion capture and then put those into Real Engine and then created, the backgrounds and environment and had the CGI characters. And then specifically, the director said, we're not going to rotoscope over these. We're not going the Bakshi route.
Right.
But animators just use this motion capture. It was motion capture so that way they can turn it into a CGI figure.
Right.
Instead of just like, here's your test footage and your live action footage and you go from there. But just use this as reference, but please don't trace over this. Don't copy, don't rotoscope. And I didn't feel their scenes felt rotoscoped in any way. It obviously it wasn't. But
it was the difference between the characters and the backgrounds. That was my issue. And the very first time you see her, it's like a flat image on a almost real image. That was weird. Like just the first time you see her, it's kind of, I just felt like it was off. And so, it wasn't off to a good shot.
That first scene, things are very photoreal as far as what they're trying to recreate from the background, because they have this, the map of Middle Earth, and they're kind of, they have some really cool scenes where they're kind of flying through, and it projects out. The mountains are actually tall. You can see, and we're weaving and diving through them as the camera goes, and then it does this transition into. It looks photoreal. It's like the mountains that you see in Lord of the Rings, and then they kind of then from there transition it to this like painted overlay on top of the CGI background. But because it's CGI, it's just moving so smoothly. So that was something definitely noticed. But the story is something that is different. So there's the Lord of the Rings, and then the Hobbit, which the Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson series is beloved. It's a masterpiece. It seems like it will never be recreated again.
Oh, it shouldn't. Like, please
don't ever redo the Lord of the Rings. It's too perfect. We don't need it. But then there's the Hobbit, which really just feels like a cash grab. It's this much shorter children's book that they bloat into 3 films, and they're all it's terrible. Okay, and I was talking with my. What would you call him? My niece's husband, and
my nephew-in-law.
My nephew-in-law, yeah. And I was talking about Lord of the Rings, and he was like, "Oh, I love The Hobbit." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" He It's like, oh, they're my favorite. I watch them all the time. And he's, probably 22 to 24-ish. And I was like, really? Not the Lord of the Rings? He's like, no, I really love the Hobbit series. I watch those all the time. And it's just shocking. It's just interesting, like what kind of you grow up with becomes your favorite.
Maybe.
But with this, they did something really smart. They didn't, and then we have also, which we're never going to cover, but it's Rings of Power, which is the Amazon TV series that they paid over, what I've heard, $1 billion on the rights to produce this. And it's supposed to be seven seasons, and they're trying to recreate Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones crashed and burned in its final few seasons. And it really was this it was amazing for what they were able to do. These monster budgets, these theatrical look and scope to a TV series. And so Amazon threw their hat in the ring, and they wanted to do this for Lord of the Rings. And theirs is called Rings of Power. And it's basically, it's like a prequel, but it's like how Sauron became Sauron. And then Galadriel's this girl boss. And I gave up after a few episodes. It was just terrible. And it's everyone is, it's on season 2. Season 2's over, but it's terrible. And yeah, but what I've loved about this, this is kind of a character that you find in the appendices. Tolkien is notorious for having these great appendices of backstory, but this is just an unnamed daughter of Helm Hammerhand, and they kind of take her and build this story around her, and it's about the War of Rohirrim. Did I say that right? I keep saying this wrong. Rohirrim.
Yeah, I think it's Rohirrim.
It's about the War of Rohirrim.
The thing is, they never actually said that word in the whole thing,
right?
So, like, otherwise I would be like, that's how it's said, but they never said that.
Right. And I liked it. I really did. It just kind of felt like this could have been any sort of story about feudal families, the different high lords. It could have been a Viking story. It could have been, these feuding families in Game of Thrones, these power dynamics. And it's always good when you have a king and you have people fighting for power and succession. And so that was tame enough as is, and that's an appealing story if you can do it right. And it's just set in the Lord of the Rings Middle Earth.
Yes.
And so I think for that, because they aren't trying to pull in, like, remember this, there are a few of those, but overall the story itself stands on its own. And it's just a fun story in the world, and you can just enjoy it for that. So before we get into our review, we're just going to give a little brief overview about what happens, who these main characters are, and just the plot. So it's about the land of Rohan, which is the horse people, and they have different factions and people who are loyal to the king. And the king who lives here, and the king is Helm Hammerhand, and he has 2 sons and a daughter. And the daughter is this free spirit. She's the redhead, and everyone else are the blondes. And
her mother died in childbirth.
Right? But then the meeting comes where all the different lords, who pledged their swords to the king come, and the one man doesn't get invited, and it is Wolf's father, and Wolf is, I don't mention his last name, and I'm trying to see it real here, Freka. So Freka kind of he's aspiring to power. And so he says, hey, you can marry my son can marry your daughter. And so the son basically proposes in front of everyone and then gets rejected. This really ticks off the dad. And so they take it outside, the 2 dads, and they have a brawl, fist fight. The Freka gets a few punches in while Helm is just kind of standing there, and then gives him a big old KO punch and kills him, which obviously was not the intended consequence. It's kind of like dueling back in the day. The purpose of the duel was never to actually kill the other person. It was more to just, defend your honor.
Right.
And you were meant to shoot away from the person, like away from their head, but beyond. It was, yeah. And so this creates a big problem with Wolf, and then his main...
He's just been rejected.
Yeah, he's been rejected by Hera on top, right before this, and then the dad dies, and so he's now on this vengeance spree. He's banished from Rohan, but then turns out he's actually accumulated a group of people. I can't remember what they're called, but
just the Borderland people.
The Borderland people, yeah, and then they actually end up creating a big army to go after Rohan, the king of Rohan, and to take over. And it turns out that one of the guys who pledged loyalty to the king was a backstabber, And so that leads them, with 300 horses less. It's interesting because the battle that happens is quite small. You see them at the top overlooking it, and it's definitely a battle, but it's not this like grand epic proportion that you see in Lord of the Rings, where every single person that seems to roam the land is there for this ultimate battle. So I kind of like seeing that. Like, this is a little skirmish, and they're taking it seriously, and he's really upset, and he's going to defend his honor. And he told Hera. Wolf told Hera that, hey, I'm gonna kill your brothers, then I'm gonna kill your dad, then I'm gonna kill you or whatnot. I really could not get over this. She ends up getting kidnapped before this ends up happening.
Yes.
And to kind of discover some information and tries to tell her dad. Dad ignores it and ultimately goes to this the battle. So it leads up to this, and the brothers get killed. They end up retreating to the keep now we know it as Helm's Deep. It's called something different in the movie. But I kind of liked it because we get different. There's just a few moments of, hey, I know this from Lord of the Rings, or that's a interesting spot that we hit in the books or the films.
It is nice to see like the fact that they don't. It is a world that you are already familiar with, if you are familiar with it at all. That. It's just like, okay, it's a different timeline, or it's a different part of the timeline, and so this is what leads into. So I like
200 years before. So all the main characters, unless you're an elf or you're a wizard who they live forever, don't die basically. All the people that you would know are not alive yet. So there's not like, hey, we're going to run into Frodo on the road.
Exactly.
Or, oh, wow, Aragorn, I haven't seen you in ages.
Yeah.
So that was good, and I thought that was appropriate. It's like this, okay, we know the Rohan, we know the people, the horse people, but these are their ancestors. Right. And it's just a story that, and I liked the tagline, it said, history becomes legend. And this is like a story that was forgotten. That's why we see it in the appendices of Lord of the Rings. It's just a footnote, but we're going to take this footnote and we're going to expand it out, and you're going to see what really happened. And really, it's just the origination of the name Helm's Deep, not how it was built, but how it got the name. And I thought that was cool. And just a little fun tidbit at the end. But yeah, that's what the story's about. And I liked it. I don't know if I told you. I already said this. If I am, just cut me off. But it seemed very much, what did I say? Like Viking and... Yeah, I already said that.
No, you didn't say that, though.
Oh. It felt just... I already said this. Like, it's a feudal family fight. Okay.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I really liked that it was just like medieval. It's kind of this medieval fighting war...
Yeah.
And people, with kings and princesses and princes and lords, it's something aspirational. It's not aspirational that you're ever going to attain it.
Right.
But you're in a world that you will never be a part of.
Especially for Americans.
Yes, totally. But it's just fun. And it's takes you to a time that you will never be a part of, but it has a lot of intrigue and mystique and like power dynamics.
Hidden doors.
Yeah, it's all these things that like, this is fun, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is something that I will never come across in my own life.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have the fantasy element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, I think I would say that this movie was enjoyable, though the focus should not have been on Hera. For me, I feel like the focus should have been on the king, the Hammerhand, and then had her as being a standout after the fact. Because... she is a Mary Sue.
No, she's not. I don't think she is at all.
Tell me, how is she not a Mary Sue?
I think, she's not, she doesn't have a lot of power, at the beginning. She's not really able to pick her destiny. The father's in charge and he tells her what she's going to do and what she's not going to do. While she is trained to kind of be a warrior and a rider, as all the people are, I don't really see her as she has the magic ticket to everything. She's pushed to the sidelines a lot. She knows her place. She's like a traditional woman in that role where, I'm going to be married off to this and I'm fine.
But she's not, though.
Well, she doesn't at the end.
No, throughout the whole thing, she's like, no, I will never be married to a man.
She doesn't say that the whole time.
Does.
No, she doesn't.
Yes, she does at the very beginning.
At the beginning, but you don't hear her like constantly griping on that. Like they move on from that.
Yeah, she doesn't gripe on it, but anytime that's brought up, she's like, no.
I got the impression like, sorry, girl, this is how it's going to be. And like, I didn't feel like she had the control in what was happening. The reason she didn't marry Scar, what's his name?
Wolf,
yes, another beast. Was because the dad ultimately like knew like, yeah, you don't want this, but I definitely don't want this. interesting that you saw her that way, because I did not see her that way.
Okay, let me put out my point. Like, why I believe this, because she comes in, she does the only time that she doesn't go to this side of I'm a strong, independent woman, I don't need no man, is when she has been kidnapped and she's in, and he is kind of basically saying like, I'm going to go to war with everybody. And she's just like, okay, if I decide to marry you, and he's like, what? Even if? What? And so, and then any other time, she's just completely set on, no, I'm never marrying a man. And
that's not her motivation, though. She doesn't keep bringing this up.
You went to the bathroom that last scene.
Oh, no. I missed probably about 3 minutes.
Yes.
And it was the worst time.
It was at the climax.
That was the big climax where they ultimately meet. So, spoilers. Hello. we do spoiler reviews. Non-spoiler reviews. This is definitely spoilers about what's going to happen.
So, in the climax, I'm letting Morgan know because she was in the bathroom. So they have this tower, it falls down onto the castle, then everybody's about coming up. When they meet, so she's saying, fine, he wants a bride, I'm going to give him a bride. She comes in, she rides up to him, and then he's like, what is this whole thing? You coming at me as a bride? You think I'd fall for this now? You had your chance. Yeah. And she was just like, I told you, I will never marry a man. And it was just like, oh my gosh. Like, interesting. Okay. And I'm just, okay, fine. But we'll move past that little aspect of it. Other than that whole thing, and I'm not saying like to be a Mary Sue, you must be married. Like that's not I'm saying she's a Mary Sue. I'm saying
a married Sue. You mean?
A married Sue.
That's her title.
So there was no point in time where she ever made a mistake. There was no point in time where she had to go back and retrace her steps and try to learn from something. It was always, she always did the right thing. She always, and I'm not saying that you have to do, like, it's bad to be the person that always does the right thing, or that there couldn't be a person that does the right thing. But as far as a dynamic character, her dad, the king, really was that dynamic character, because he's the one that comes out at the very beginning, not very, very beginning, but like in the beginning enough where he says like, okay, we're going to go out and brawl outside. We're going to take this stuff outside.
Oh yeah. That's great. Like, ooh, this is nice.
This is a very different. I actually liked that aspect of this movie because it was like, all right,
that was very masculine, and that was very old, world.
Yeah,
like we're just going to fight this out like men, and and then it goes badly. Okay, put a pin in that.
Yes. Yeah. So he makes the bad decision to take this outside and ends up killing the other guy without really meaning to, but just like, the guy couldn't take a punch.
His name is Hammerhand. Literally. That's literally who and he is. Figuratively, yes.
And then he goes in and she gets kidnapped. Wolf tells her his plan. So now she comes back and says, okay, now we have to bring in other people in order to help save ourselves. And it has the pride that says, no, I won't do that. No, we're not doing that. And so he's the one that has a pride problem that has to get over this whole section. He ends up losing all of his children except for one. And in the very end, it's him. He's the one that has to make the final decision of, telling her, no, you got this. I was wrong to doubt you. And now it's all you. And then he ends up being the king, that like the masculine king that he is, that he stands out in the middle of the snow, like the blizzard, just like he's with knees unbent and defending this place. And it was like, man, good guy.
Yeah.
But I think that had they focused more on his plight and his whole story, I think you would have gotten a lot more dynamic range out of this. And then had her feel the need, okay, now you could show her going through and doing these things. But I guess with a Mary Sue, I feel like you have to acknowledge at some point that you're wrong and overcome that fatal flaw of your own. And it cannot be I just didn't know how amazing I was. Like, that's basically what most Mary Sues are, is lack of courage, but still always in the right. I just feel like this movie would have been better served as an ensemble piece as opposed to having her as like the main character. And they could have made way more out of all of the brothers. They could have done way more out of even the little dude who's like doing all the work where nobody else works except for this kid who's like having to retell the tales of all the things. And that, I think that's my main criticism, is the emphasis on and character development just really wasn't where it could have been. I don't know if most people would have noticed it. But it could have just been that much better. Right.
They actually were really great characters. The dad was wonderful.
Yes.
Brian Cox did a great job voicing him. He just was this massive beast of a man who was so intimidating and strong. And he was a king, and he was very kingly. And he was a ruler and cared for his people. I loved it. And then the brothers, we got to learn a little bit more about them. And they were very heroic as well, especially, this is a war film. There's lots of battles that happen.
There's a lot of blood.
It's very anime
Everybody
in that way.
dies.
And I felt bad, and I felt sad when they died. It was a moment, and building them up more we would have benefited from that, because we could see her despair. We feel it a little more from the king. You know, he loses his sons, and he really goes into this, I don't know, this trance in a way where he's unable to recover because the two sons have died. And not so much from her, although we do feel it from her. But yeah, I don't really know why they felt the need to really focus on her so much, because in the poster, because she's the only one with red hair and she's wearing this white gown, she stands out.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's other people here, but I didn't even notice them so much because I'm really only focused on her and what's happening there. There's all these people on horses, and there's her horse, there's the dad, there's Wolf, but the brothers aren't shown, at least that I can tell. Yeah, it would have definitely benefited from being more of a family tale with her just being an important character, but not the character.
Right.
You can still open with her. Yeah. You know, being the independent, free spirit riding around on her horse.
Yeah.
And then have the brothers like rein her in. Literally, you know, pun intended.
Yeah. No, I feel like they had the makings of something really great. For me, instead, like, I know we do normally rate this at the end, and this is not the end, but I'm just saying, like, that's why I would rate it at like a 3, because it's like it was above average. 2.5 is like average. Like,
I don't know.
2.5
we're on a curve.
is kind of down.
For us, 2.5 is pretty bad.
I feel like 3 actually for us is average.
Okay.
So I feel like this was an average film, something that's definitely watchable, definitely like good things in it, a lot of positives, but just didn't quite hit the mark where it could have. As far as like why they're focusing on her, I don't know. I went into this feeling like it was going to be the girl boss who girl bossed more than any girl boss that ever girl bossed,
right?
And it wasn't that. And I was glad about that.
Yeah.
But it also, I just felt like they were, in order to focus on her that much, I feel like they were probably wanting it to be that way because, I don't know, animated films take so long to make. And so how would they know that by the time we get to 2024, we're all like, meh, I'm over girl boss, you know? And even by 2023, when they're showing this movie at places, like it's falling, but it's not nearly as down as I feel like it is now. Like, I don't know, at least in my opinion, anytime I see a girl boss movie kind of thing, I'm just like rolling my eyes. Like, I don't want to watch this.
Yeah.
It's not realistic. And even in this one, and I'm skipping to the very end of the movie, like, so her cousin now becomes the king, and if the king ever needs you, can he count on your sword, my sword, and my love, you know? And it's like, girlfriend, I know he's your cousin and all, but that was fine back then. And
I know
he was a good guy. Like, I know Wolf was just not a guy that you would want to be with, but you know, with this other guy, he was a good guy. And I feel like, and she was like, oh no, she's stuck to her gun. She's never going to marry a man. And
that was such a stupid thing to like have one of the tenets of her personality
Yes.
and character development.
Yes. And I felt like at that moment, as a 38-year-old, single, never been married, no kids, the idea of like, and she never married or whatever, as if it's something to aspire to. And it's like, okay, yeah, when you're in your 20s, you feel that. You feel like, the adventures keep coming.
Yes.
But when you're in your 30s, I promise you, women, like something changes physically in you. And when I was 31, I needed to get a dog because I needed to take care of something. And it was this nurturing thing in me that I never had as a 20-year-old, even though I had dogs back then, but it wasn't like the same thing.
Right.
And when you are in your 20s, yeah, there's a lot of that, like, you know, floating around, wanting to have your own adventures and things. But when you get older, like, that changes. That is a very physical thing that changes. You don't think it will be, but it is. And I feel like the fact that they are still like, she never regretted it.
Yeah,
like,
they're pushing these modern
so.
sensibilities into this film that's very much in this world that's meant to be just very much old world. It has the hierarchies and the structures. And I mean, yeah.
Well, it's like, okay,
the stability was not going to be there for her just roaming the wilderness and meeting up with Gandalf to give him the info.
Exactly. And if she is, I feel like there's this side of, like, okay, if you're trying to pull off like a Queen Elizabeth I, where she didn't get married out of political reasons in order to be queen because she wanted to be queen, like that was not her. Like, she did not want to be queen. That was always meant for somebody else. Okay. But now she's like, oh no, I'm just going to be floating on the wind. I promise you, honey, you're going to regret this. So anyway, I'm here to let you know that is where I called major bull.
It was frustrating. There were a few moments that I really would have liked to give a little bit of this needed like some romance in here. And so we see these flashbacks of Hera. Did they call her Era or was it Hera?
I thought it was Hera.
Okay, that's what I thought too. But there was one time where I thought I heard the H was silent. I was like, wait a second. No, so Hera and Wolf, and they actually grew up together. And you see how he gets his scar. It's because they're fighting, with swords, actual swords at a young age. It seems like they're between 8 and 10. And she hits him and slices his eye. And so that's ultimately, it's interesting because he'd already done the proposal to her at that point. And then we go to the flashback and we're like, oh, wow, there's history here. And that's how he got his scar. But then there's a moment, this might be before the flashback, but where they're left alone in the big hall to talk while everyone goes outside to do the brawl.
Right.
And I thought this was missing a moment. It's obvious he's loved her and wanted to marry her. She's like, no, I never wanted that. It was never like that. He's like, but for me it was, right? And I feel like he needed to steal a kiss. Like, he needed to just be very aggressive and like try to take the kiss from her, or they get so close to each other where you could feel that tension there. But again, with the way you perceived her character to be, like, she never was interested in romance at all.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a big miss on her character. Like, that should have been something that she was open to, because if they would have had a scene like where they actually kissed and she like pushes away, it happens so many times in movies.
Right.
It would have
it's useful. It's a useful plot point.
Yes, it would have made it so much more real that he really loved her. And she felt the connection there too, but she pushes away. And then, just move on. Or even when he kidnaps her, he should have kissed her and said, no, like, now you're mine. And I'm going to kiss you. I'm going to steal this from you.
Yeah. And then that's one more reason to hate the man.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, even that little flashback, though, he did have quite the anger management issues.
Yes, you see it come out.
And I'm like, no, I understand why you don't like him now.
He's not getting his way.
When he first comes in, I was like, oh, dude, like,
I know.
He's
like
handsome.
The scar
okay.
and the long hair. I'm like, ooh, okay.
Okay, what's your story?
A little darker skinned.
But yeah, he's definitely got this. He's definitely got an anger management issue, and I'm like, I'm not about that life. So, and when he's kidnapped her, obviously it's even more so on the side of like, I'm going to like he throws his sword at her and slices her cheek, and it's like, you want to marry me now, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
no, dude.
Yeah. Like, it was right after that where he was like, there could be another way out, you know? And it's just like, oh, that is how we know that we don't like you at all. And there's no turning back at that point.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, well, I mean, the way he's brought in in the little brawl scene right before the brawl scene is much more of a, like, you don't really understand that he has such a temper problem. And I think it probably would have been better suited. I don't know, maybe not. But like, you see him go from being this, you know, pseudo Casanova to being the guy of like, I'm now going to kill all of you.
Yeah.
So I don't know, his character was interesting, and I feel like I actually liked his character. The fact that he never really learned, even in the end, his main guy, his like second in command, basically turn against him and say, no, like, you've done this, like, we're done, we can move back, we're done with this. And even then he pushes forward and he's like, no, if I don't have my revenge, what do I have? And that is very, like, as far as creating a villain that's worth killing, like, that's perfect, because it's like, no, he has no humanity left in him. Even
his like number one guy, eventually it's too much for even him. You know, and he's stuck with him all along the way, and it's too much, and he doesn't care, and that guy ends up dying. So the second half of the film, they end up getting, after this first fight, she sees that, you know, one of the people who pledged their people was a turncoat, and so she takes the initiative to get everybody out and to abandon fort. And so those are really great things of seeing, like, okay, yeah, she's able to take that initiative. She's able to, like, be, okay, we're doing this, and I'm going to take care of the people here. It was so okay. There's so many parts of this that I want to throw in, but I'm having a hard time figuring out where to start, actually. But the part that I want to start with, you have the little dude who's, you know, the caller, who's, you know, doing the roll call, and he's going through and he's like, I'm just looking at all of these crests and I don't know who they are. And it gets down to the very bottom and it's like even ripped off. So you don't even see who this last one is. And so Hera is the one to tell him about these, like, you know, the women, the shield maidens.
Yeah. And they took up arms because they had to. And they're like, oh, are they all gone? Not all of them. I mean, it's just like, that was you? Like, it wasn't completely made clear that was her.
Oh, I thought it was obvious it was her once they kind of, they explicitly say it.
Okay. But so I feel like, okay, she's doing it. I feel like, okay, is that what they're going to do again? Like, she's going to become the queen of the you know, the ladies who are taking over the camp.
Yeah,
but that wasn't.
And the king was like, they're not any around. We can just take that banner down.
Yeah.
No.
She's like, I'm still here.
Yeah.
But it's like, who told her that though? Was it her nanny person? Like, I guess she was.
The nanny was the shield maiden, one of the remaining ones.
Oh.
That's why she's able to fight so well. She comes in at that one moment when she's been kidnapped, and she comes in and she fights.
That's
and
so
the
rude
reason
of the king then.
And then she's able to fight
none of them
so
are
well
around,
because
except your
she's
nanny.
trained. Yeah. I mean, hey, at least if you're going to have a handmaiden, at least have one who can fight.
Right, yeah.
Like Cassandra in Tangled the series.
Oh, yes. So this is basically the origin story of the name of this location. But I don't remember what it was prior, so we're just going to call it Helm's Deep. But anyway, so they go to this fortress. They hide away in order to maintain their people. So this is basically their winter lodging, I guess.
No, it's just the place they go if they have to, because they're on the plains. Because they're horse people. They really don't have a way. They're just kind of in the middle. It's a way for them to go and hide away amongst this keep in the mountains that's impenetrable.
Yeah. So she goes in there, and that's great. And then the battle continues, and each one of the sons dies, and that's sad because
they die doing very heroic things.
Yes.
Or have done things leading up to that point.
And it really, like, they really do a good job of of making you actually care about these individual people that end up dying. And this was a weird moment because knowing Lord of the Rings, I just remember that Helm's Deep was the place where all the wraiths end up living, and everybody kept. No, is that not where they are? Where are they?
They don't live anywhere. They're all around. There's one part where there's an old abandoned something on top of a hilltop.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't that?
No.
Oh, okay.
Helm's Deep's where they have the big battle. Legolas does his shield his shield surfing down the thing, and all the orcs are trying to break in. They can't.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Well, so in my mind, this was where that was, and he was one of the people that came out later, as far as his spirit stayed there, which would have been great. I was like, oh, that would have been a great origin story of that connection. But anyway, so they're in there.
Well, the ring wraiths are the 9 rings that were given to the men, the kings.
I'm not talking about the ring wraiths. I'm talking about the actual ghosts that they enlist.
Oh, yeah. No, that's by
Different.
Minas Tirith. That's different. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I understand where you're getting that from now. Yeah. The ghost army at the end.
So I thought that, okay, this is the origin of the ghost army. That's cool. I was like, all right.
That was kind of interesting because the people start dying. It's blizzard, it's cold. This is not when you typically fight battles and wars and ones that you have to just stake out, and he disappears one day. He's basically a comatose state.
Yes.
And then she's weeping over his body and must have fallen asleep or something, that he's gone. Mm-hmm. And turns out he went through the secret passage, and then he's just slaughtering people in the night and then coming
bare arms.
Yes. I mean, he is a beast. and people think there's this ghost that is coming and it's a bad omen.
Yeah.
And because he has this big helmet on, which is what his signature look.
I don't think he has his helmet on at that point.
You don't think he has the helmet when he's
attacking?
attacking?
No, I think he's just the ghost.
Oh, okay.
But like he just comes at him and just
we see it kind of like blurry figure, and we're like, who is this? At first, then we meet some orcs who have a giant orc, troll friend, and he has these big horns that look like. And so at first I was like, oh, it was actually this giant orc creature that was the one that was creating a ruckus, and it wasn't. So that was a weird moment. But yeah, and then so he is found out after they kill the orcs, and now they have to run up and we have to make a break for it and go to the main doors in order to get back, because our secret entrance there's been a rock slide over that, so we can't go back that way. We have to go in the main doors. And so they're running past and getting past everybody. But they go up to the doors, and it's literally him just pulling the doors open. Which that part didn't make sense to me, because in The Lord of the Rings, it's a huge plot point that you cannot penetrate this gate.
Right.
It's so much so they have to have a battering ram, and it's this big thing for them to finally kind of break through the gate. And he's just able to open it with his hands.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry. I understand that you are incredibly ripped and buff, but no, I didn't like that part.
I know. I felt like that was one of the key moments that really lost me, because it was hard to feel like even the people, you could have gotten even 6 men over to try and pull these gates open, and it just takes one of him.
Right.
It's just why are we building this huge long tower if it just takes a couple guys to pull this open? So that lost me. But yeah, I mean, I felt like the whole build up and everything. And so at that point they're like, okay, we know that Wolf's army is still there. They've built this tower, and now they're going to come out at us. And the only way, we just have to get everybody out. And but Wolf is going to be looking at us. He'll see us. No, he won't, because I will keep his eye. His eyes will be on me. And I'm just like, I mean, that's ballsy.
Yes.
She's girlfriend is taking charge at that moment. Mm-hmm. What was your thought about the whole eagle situation?
I mean, it's in Lord of the Rings at the very end. The Eagles actually play pivotal moment a few times, and typically it's just with Gandalf and then Frodo later at the behest of Gandalf, I guess. And so we see the eagles at the beginning. She's trying to talk to them. She gives them this big flank of meat, and then tries to pet them, and they peck at her and fly away. And she's been trying, and then. So we see, she's daredevil adventurer. She's trying things that shouldn't be doing, and then we see them kind of flying overhead certain times, and then it has its nest, or it's living in the top of this mountain, and she's able to climb up there with her ice climber, her ice pick boots.
I was like, that's the other part that lost me. I'm like,
I thought
honey,
that was cool. I like that because that's realistic. There are people that do that.
There are people that do that, but I don't think she was one of those.
I liked it. Did they have to have her where she was like hanging upside down almost? Maybe not. That was a bit too much. Like just scaling the wall that's icy, that was enough.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do you're the top 1% of ice climbers. So yeah, I definitely felt that. But yeah, then the Eagles, she's able to finally, all that goodwill that she's been, mustering with them over the past few years finally pays off, where they're able to deliver a message, and it helps. In Lord of the Rings, at almost the 11th hour, Gandalf is able to come with another army up at the top and rescue him down. Mm-hmm. And so there's another moment like that. It's not the same, but it's a very similar moment where they come and save him at the end. And it was good because, he had been banished, and we liked that character. I liked that character up to the point of the cousin. And he, as he says, I will be ready for you when you call. And she did call. And she said, and by sending the actual helm, really is not just, okay, my cousin wants me to come. It's like the king himself is sending this. And so we got the okay, guys, as they come and they say, but going back to the Eagles, they were fine. I thought it was just like a fun way to, now I want to dive into the lore of the Eagles so much more. Yeah. Because they're playing quite a role. It didn't bother me, the role that they played. It was ancillary, but important at the end.
Yeah. I was wondering if they were, because I felt like even in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I felt like it was like or it's always joked about, I think, how it should have ended.
How it should have ended. Why did you have the Eagles fly you over Mordor and drop the ring down?
Like,
and people are like, no, that never would have worked. That was
right.
Yeah.
But I've heard the tale. I've heard I've heard people say that, and so I felt like they were. That part of her climbing up was just a little much for me, but even like her, it's very convenient that they understand the common tongue of men. Like, oh, okay, good. And they are now like, this Eagles now just decided, yeah, okay, I'll grab your box and take it somewhere. Yeah. Like, it's just
your lapdog.
It's kind of a weird ask, but okay. I don't know. All in all, I felt like the movie it had a lot, like I mentioned earlier, I felt like the movie had a lot of really good points. It was easy to get through. There were a lot of points that I felt like made it very real, as far as like, you're really showing war, you're really showing people die, and you're not trying to hide that fact that,
the way the first brother dies with the arrow through the neck. Oh, yikes.
Yes.
Yeah. The other brother's death is off screen, but we feel it nonetheless.
Oh, yeah, you do. I think you feel that one more because you're just like, oh, the singer,
the artist,
the aspiring artist. So yeah, I give this movie 3 stars. I felt like, would I recommend it? I think not. Overtly, I definitely wouldn't have like my little nieces and nephews go see it. This is definitely more of an older kid kind of a thing to see. But overall, I felt like it had enjoyable moments, and it was good enough.
Yeah. So for me, would I recommend this? Definitely. I would recommend this to, I'm trying to look it up, but I think it's PG-13. And I think based on the blood, it's probably PG-13. Yeah. But younger, anime is really big with the youth. The youth.
The
youths. The young, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, way more so than when we were growing up. There was anime was on the fringe. Now it's way more mainstream.
Yes.
And so for that reason, I don't think this art style is going to turn off like that crowd. I think it's not going to actually entice people. Maybe older people might be turned off by that. Animation in general can be a turnoff, just like musicals in general can be a turnoff. Right. But I wouldn't let that deter you. Initially, it's rough getting into it, but I think this would be a great movie for teenage boys.
Yeah,
I have no problem. I think they would absolutely just eat every bit of this up. And when you were in high school, you used to go to movies like with your friends. Like this would be a great one for a group of friends to go and see.
Yeah.
I thought even though it has like the main girl character, I don't think that really detracts. I think there's a lot of detracts from men. Maybe I don't want to see a movie with a girl. Like it's not a big deal. And so for that reason, I definitely would recommend it to that group. Younger kids, absolutely not. It's just really bloody and gory. It is long too. I think it's 2 hours 15 minutes, including the credits. So it's a bit long, but I didn't ever feel like it was lagging. Is that the term? It didn't feel like it was ever like, get on with it.
Are we done yet?
I actually, because I thought it was great, and it's a war movie and a battle movie, lots of battles. And initially, I was a bit nervous, like I said, going into this being it's the Spider-Man thing. You only made this because you have to, if that's your primary thing, we have a good story to tell and let's tell the story. It's like, no, we have to retain our rights. What stories can we tell? That's a huge red flag for me, but I think they overcame it really well. And overall, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it much more than I thought, because at first I saw the poster. Oh, I'm excited. This will be pretty cool. And then I was like, I don't know about this. And then I was left surprised and very happy. So ultimately, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. It was a good watch. If you're looking for something in December, maybe Sonic 3 is not your, Sonic 3 is not your thing, and Mufasa, definitely not. Like I haven't even seen Mufasa, but I'd recommend this over Mufasa.
On
so
principle.
There we have. Yes, on principle. In case I notoriously have boycotted the live action remakes unless I'm seeing it for a review, which I probably will see it because again I have this goal of doing a certain number of reviews. I'll probably end up seeing Mufasa, but begrudgingly. I don't go out of my way to pay money to go see them.
Right.
But yeah, I'm interested to see how this does. I have a feeling because of the marketing and time that it's coming out, it could be a flop. And I don't think that's the purpose. I don't think they necessarily care that this is going to be a big budget success. I think it's like we had to get this out. It'd be very delightful if it was able to do well. Not knowing the budget, I'm not sure. Like, is this a 50 million budget, 100 million? One thing we didn't talk about, they bring back Miranda Otto as Éowyn. And Éowyn really is just this narrator who's this Éowyn was the Rohan girl who is very pivotal in Return of the King. And I liked that. I mean, you didn't have to know that it was her, but she's telling the story that you might not have heard before.
Well, yeah, and it's also, isn't that her like lineage? That's like her people.
Yes, yep. So I thought that was great, and I really liked that. So yeah, so there you have it. That is The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. Pleasantly surprised. Yeah, that was great.
Go to rotoscopers.com/323, and you will be able to make any comments for us there. You can also go ahead and send us a voicemail. Like, we'd like to hear from you guys, especially coming the year end. We love hearing from everybody.
Let us know what were your favorite movies of 2024, your duds of 2024. Yeah, maybe we'll do a big voicemail bag episode at the end of the year or beginning of the year. Just kind of
beginning.
Year in review, talking about that. That'd be a whole lot of fun. And of course, you can find us on X at Rotoscopers. Message us there. It's fun having conversations with you guys and talking about the news and just funny memes and things that come up. I'm having a great time over there. So Go give us a follow. And until next time, we are the Rotoscopers. It's called The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. Rohirrim. Okay. Rohirrim. Okay. Is called The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. Wait, how did we say this before?
Rohirrim?
That is The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. I said it again. Rohirrim. You've been listening to the Animation Addicts podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to help spread the word, be sure to share the podcast with your friends on social media. Just don't forget to tag us at Rotoscopers on Instagram and use the hashtag AnimationAddicts. For all the links and full show notes for this episode, go to rotoscopers.com/podcast. Now, if you still can't get enough for your animation fix, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and visit rotoscopers.com for more animation news, reviews, and interviews. Thanks for listening.